Ernie Porn as well. Let's go back to Cheryl Choden. She's in Grand Rapids. She's following the Santorum campaign tonight. Cheryl, take it away.
Well, we're just out and about talking to people in the crowd, and there is a crowd here. Before we talk to Heidi, take a look over here. The room has filled. We're in the Ambassador Ballroom at the Amway Grand Hotel in Grand Rapids. We are in Grand Rapids because Santorum's people say that Grand Rapids is a conservative area, and that reflects their candidates' views. This is Heidi Border. Heidi, you've been here. You're waiting for Mr. Santorum to come down. And what are you? Well, you're very excited. Talk to me.
We're very excited. Actually, I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm a follower of his from way back.
Wow.
And I was here on business and heard that this was going to happen, and couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of the action and watch. And hopefully, we knew it was going to be a close race, but we think he's going to pull out of it in the end. So.
And this is not a make it or break it election, really. This primary, it's important, but not make it or break it. He'll move on. I think what he's trying to do is beat Mitt Romney.
Exactly, and I think that, of course, Mitt's family is from the Detroit area, so, we knew that that was going to be an issue here, but it's just added incentive for the motivation to continue. We want to make sure we've got Michigan in our pocket so we can move forward and get the other swing states.
Tell me if you think this is true, but some of Santorum's people are saying that they believe it's already a win because he made it a competitive race in Michigan, which is Mitt Romney's home state, as you said.
It is a huge win. The fact that he's gotten this far and he has outdone Newt Gingrich, I think that is a huge win, and the fact that he is such a competitor and he is doing it on half the budget that Mitt Romney has, I think that shows a lot, and I think that, in the end, the right thing's going to happen and he's going to win.
What do you like about Rick Santorum? What really embraces you?
I think the biggest thing is that he's a faith-based candidate, and I believe that he does the right thing.
And do you think a faith-based candidate will do a good job, be successful in the White House if he were to win the White House?
I believe that that in the end he will do what's best for the country, and I think that's the bottom line, and I trust him to do that. So that's what I'm counting on.
Wow, you're from Pittsburgh too. That's his home. Wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I so appreciate it. Yeah, that's one person. We can talk to somebody else too. There are a lot of people here who are. Thanks a lot, and we will talk to you after. Let me see if we can talk to some more people. Excuse me, can I talk to you for a second? You are a Santorum supporter,
oh, yeah?
Yes. What is your name?
Todd Oatley.
Todd, and where are you from?
Rockford, Michigan.
Okay, in Rockford. So you're further south, way further.
A little bit up north, of here.
Rockford, I'm thinking of Rockwood. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, talk to me about Santorum. What makes you like him so much? Why do you think he'd be a good president?
I'm really a big fan of his conservative positions on life, and we're a big pro-life family, and we're real excited about his positions on those things.
And do you think that he would do well against Barack Obama?
I think so. I really think he would.
And why do you say that?
I think he's got experience in Washington. I think he's well known, and I think he knows how to play the game, but yeah, he sticks to his beliefs rather well. And he's lasted this long. Usually guys that really hold to their position on things don't last this long. So,
really, you think that? What do you think, why do you like him over Mitt Romney?
I'm not as familiar with Mitt Romney, honestly. I know he's from Michigan, was born in Michigan. His father, of course, has a grand tradition here. But I've been really excited about the excitement around Santorum, and he's got a lot of energy. And I think what I like about him is he's not. I get the flavor from Mitt Romney. He's kind of the old school, old money, and I think people are looking for a change from that.
Okay, so you're looking forward to Rick Santorum coming down and talking?
Hopefully soon. Hopefully very soon. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for sharing the thoughts. Okay. That's two people here who are very excited. And take a look, if Jeremy, you can go over. You can see all the people here, Dave. How many people are here? The room is filling up, but they said that Santorum's not going to come down until he gets some hard numbers. So we're in Grand Rapids. Back to you.
Cheryl, thank you very much. There's certainly an energy in the room, in good reason. Everybody is anticipating success for their candidate, certainly for Rick Santorum. And in the people that you've talked with there tonight, it seems as though there is an appeal to this man for them that they really connect with.
And you heard two of them say that the faith, it was a faith-based kind of that, and his pro-life issues too. Those are the issues that I think are drawing some of these people to him.
And the indication is Santorum will be down when he gets more hard numbers, you say, when he feels better about maybe the direction that this night is going to go.
And I did talk to his people, and I asked them, because sometimes they like to come down right about 11 o'clock when we are going to go on our air, on our news, and they said he is going to wait until he feels comfortable with the numbers to come down.
All right, very good. Cheryl, thank you very much. Cheryl Choden is live in Grand Rapids at Santorum headquarters tonight on a very, very interesting evening on this Michigan presidential primary night. Our hard numbers to this point from Tim Kiska and the 60 precincts that he follows to determine a sample of where we are. Again, hard numbers. The totals at this point: Santorum 42%, Romney 40%, Ron Paul 10%, Newt Gingrich 5%. Now that's with about 50 of the 60 precincts that we follow statewide. That's what the hard numbers are looking like right now. Too close to call an outcome here. And again, you've got the whole issue of absentee ballots as well, how they factor in, as Chuck Stokes has told us, and Bernie Porn as well, that's factored to some degree in the 60 precincts that Tim surveys here with hard numbers after the ballots close. But there could be 20% of the total vote absentee ballots, and so that adds a degree of difficulty, certainly in terms of trying to project a winner, and just how long it's going to take to get the hard numbers and the indication of a winner here in the state of Michigan. Will it be tonight? Will it be tomorrow morning? It's going to be interesting as the evening continues, for sure. But it is quite a race. It's a race that Mitt Romney probably weeks ago didn't anticipate would be what it turned out to be, and as close as in fact it is. Interesting to say the least.
There's a humdinger.
Yeah, I like that.
I think Tim's lost about 15 pounds.
Yeah,
today.
and aged probably 10 years already.
At the very least. If you love politics, this is exciting.
This is awesome.
The entire nation is watching Michigan. I should say more than an entire nation, because when Jim Blanchard came in, who used to be the ambassador to Canada, he said he just got finished doing an interview with the Canadian broadcasting industry, and they're watching this as closely as we're watching it in America. Tim Kiska, who does the 60 precincts that we talked about all night long, he has all 60 in.
Oh, he does, okay.
He does have all 60 in. His numbers are showing 40.9% for Santorum, 38.9% for Romney, 10.7% for Paul, and 5.9% for Gingrich, 3.7% others. And he said it's just too close to call.
And there's a margin of error here, certainly, but in the last election, he was telling me it was like within 1 percentage point.
Yes.
So these numbers are historically really
he's
active.
done very well. He's been extremely close, and he prides himself on it.
Sure.
And he has a long history with it. But you got to juxtapose these numbers with some of the hard numbers that we see coming in on CNN and the AP. CNN has got Romney up by 4. AP, I think, has Romney up by 3. All of these are pretty much within the margin of error, and that's not to say that when it's all said and done, the numbers come out closer to what Tim is predicting here. This is just very, very close. What we're trying to figure out now is how the west side of the state voted versus southeast Michigan. It looks like the west side of the state at this point voted a little heavier than Southeast Michigan.
Which should have benefited Santorum, we think.
We think.
Yeah.
But in a race this close, as I mentioned earlier, you've got so many factors working. You've got the Paul factor, you've got the crossover from Democrats, and so it's hard to say just where this is going to all come down. But it is proof, if there's a good side to this, regardless of who wins, is that the nation is watching the state of Michigan right now. They're paying attention to the issues here in Michigan. The auto industry is certainly going to be a factor, especially as we go into the general and it becomes a Democrat versus a Republican. And there are those who will say, well, the auto industry, is that issue really as important as you in Michigan like to make it out to be? And I think a lot of the candidates along the campaign trail were playing more towards the country and the rest of the nation as opposed to Michigan and how we feel about the auto industry here, because it's our bread and butter. But I think this is showing now that this may turn out to be one of the pivotal issues, not the single most important issues, but it certainly is going to be an issue that's going to be talked about, and you'll see it in ads all the way down the line.
Plus jobs. And the economy still going to be the overriding issues when you get to the general election. So Michigan and the bailout, the success of automakers, that's got to be in the mix.
Oh, it is.
Yeah?
It is.
Yeah.
It will clearly be in the mix, especially as long as the auto industry is doing well. And if it takes a real bad turn, of course, people are going to say, oh, we told you so. But, certainly we've been reporting stories about how well the auto industry is doing and how it's bounced back quicker than a lot of people had ever anticipated. And they're paying back the loans. And so it disarms some of the people. But there's still real issues out there that the entire Republican field has made all the way down the line and saying, hey, it's not that we weren't for the auto industry, it's just that we did not like the way the bailout was put together. And that sets a bad precedent for long-term and for other industries.
Fascinating. And then the whole dynamic of Mitt Romney and his candidacy going forward, whether he wins by a slim margin or loses by a slim margin, as I mentioned with Bernie, he's got some explaining to do in his home state.
And I think you and Stephen and Bernie were talking about it. Everybody will have their spin. I can tell you the spin doctors are working overtime right now so that everybody can come out of this and declare themselves a winner in some way, shape, or form. But what will also be talked about coming out of this, especially depending on what happens on Super Tuesday. If one candidate doesn't just run away with Super Tuesday and it's split up among all these candidates, there is a very real possibility, even though the traditional Republican leaders don't like to talk about it a lot, there is the chance that we might have a broker convention in Tampa come this summer. I still think we're a long way away from that, but you will hear that talk, and you'll also hear other names being suggested. Well, why don't you maybe have Governor Christie of New Jersey jump into this whole thing, even though he said, I don't want any parts of it, or Sarah Palin,
or Jeb Bush, or Mark, we go on and on.
You'll get a little bit of everything because there's no clear-cut winner going on here. But Super Tuesday is going to be very, very important, which comes up very shortly in March, and that's a lot of states.
Let's get the perspective of Bill Ballinger, inside Michigan politics, longtime observer of the political scene in Michigan and of elections. Bill, good evening. You're with Chuck Stokes and Dave Llewellyn, Channel 7's WXYZ.com's continuing coverage of this Michigan presidential primary. Your sense of the evening?
Well, I'm not sure at this point if we know who's going to win. Have you projected a winner?
No, we have not.
No, we haven't. We were waiting for you.
You want to put a toe in the water there, Bill?
Well, about 45 minutes ago, Santorum was up, and then 15 minutes ago, Romney was up, and, we don't know where all these returns are coming from. That's the deal, and I think you guys probably put your finger on it. I think both these candidates are going to be spinning this result. If you're Romney, you're going to say, if you lost, you're going to say, well, Santorum really took the low road here and brought in the labor unions and the Democrats to deliver votes for him, compelled him to win to victory. And then he'll also say, hey, I got some delegates out of this. We each got delegates, and we'll go on from here. If loses, he'll say, well, we each got some delegates out of Michigan. It was almost even. And secondly, what am I doing, nearly winning Michigan from, Mitt Romney's native state, Michigan, So I think they're both going to have plausible explanations, and I think it goes on from here. Obviously, Romney will have really dodged the bullet if he wins Michigan, because he will win Arizona and Michigan going into Super Tuesday.
Yeah, Bill, you're a great political historian. Go back in history a little bit. What does this remind you of? When was the last time we saw this kind of race here in Michigan among the Republicans?
Honestly, probably the best race really was between Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan in 1976. I don't know. You guys weren't even born yet, I don't think, were you?
Well, I was. Yeah. I was.
I hate to admit it, but I was too, Bill.
Yeah, you were just in shorts. You were like, whatever, toddlers. But in any event, Gerald Ford had to come back here and win his native state, where he was a representative in Congress, a Republican minority leader. Ronald Reagan had won a string of primaries and was really threatening him. And Gerald Ford came back here, and he put together a whistle-stop tour on a train. And he went around the state, and he fended off Ronald Reagan. But I'll tell you, it was a battle. And it was kind of almost a little bit like this in that Ford was viewed as the more moderate candidate. He was the incumbent trying to win nomination to win a full term. And Reagan was the conservative insurgent. And it was very close, and it was very hard fought. And Ford barely eked it out, and he barely had the majority of delegates going into the convention that summer. And there was even some doubt that he would be able to fend off Reagan at the convention. Reagan tried to steal Pennsylvania from him by naming Richard Schweikert, a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, as his running mate, and peeling away the Pennsylvania delegation from Ford. So that's what I think back to.
And, could we see a scenario like that playing out again here in 2012?
Well, we could. Unfortunately for the Republicans, remember that in 76, even though Ford got the nomination, he went on to lose to Jimmy Carter by 3 percentage points, 51 to 48%. So the Republicans do not want this race to end that way, but it may end that way, or worse, if they keep this battle up indefinitely into the late spring and summer, and they can't decide on a nominee, and these guys keep hacking each other up and driving up each other's negatives.
Do you think there's any chance of a brokered convention, or is that just real
far-fetched?
Honestly,
and I do.
Wishful thinking among the media
well,
that wants some excitement.
A little of both. I think it's possible there could be. I know there are a lot of people saying nowadays it just can't happen. I definitely think it could happen if Romney loses tonight, and if he doesn't do well on Super Tuesday, and it's getting to look like he just cannot close the deal. I think there are these super PACs and other power brokers at the national level are going to say, we simply cannot afford to have Rick Santorum or Newt Gingrich, for that matter, as our nominee. We're going to get blown away, and they will try and get one of these players off the bench like Jeb Bush or Chris Christie or Mitch Daniels, and at least try and buy a couple of primary wins in the late spring, which they could do probably with money, enough to prevent any candidate from having a majority of delegates going into the national convention in August. Remember, Republicans have started trending in the last cycle or two more toward the Democratic system of hacking up the state allocation of delegates. Look at Michigan. Even if Santorum loses tonight, he's probably going to get a chunk of delegates. It's not the winner-take-all system that it was a few cycles ago for the Republicans, where somebody could get on a roll and build up a huge majority by winner-take-all victories in various states. So it's certainly a possibility. The odds are obviously strongly against it. You'd have a brokered convention.
Hey, Bill, and you talk about hard numbers, whether it's Romney who prevails or Santorum who maybe pulls off the upset and wins here. Isn't the real big winner tonight President Obama?
Well, so far, yes, there's no question about it. I mean, there was a poll that came out, you probably saw it a week ago, showing that all of a sudden Barack Obama's ahead of Mitt Romney by 18 points in Michigan and 22, 23 points ahead of Rick Santorum. That's terrible for the Republicans. You may remember John McCain lost Michigan to Obama in 2008 by 17 points, and that had a huge negative effect on Republican candidates all the way down the ticket. Republicans would lose control of the state house. They'd lose control maybe of a couple of other major offices or boards of commissioners. They might lose, God knows, maybe a Supreme Court justice or two and lose control of the court. So that would be terrible. The Republicans have got to hope that they can coalesce behind a nominee relatively soon and start to reposition themselves for the general election and hope that the issues will start to break their way and they can get back in the game, because right now they're trailing badly.
Bill, let me ask you, you've watched politics in this state for a long, long time, have even participated in it. What does this say to you about philosophically what's going on within the Republican Party, and what do you see as the pros and cons?
Well, I think the pros are that, you've still got, I think, Tea Party energy carrying over from 2010. You've got a lot of very vibrant grassroots activists who are energized for the Republican Party. That's a help. You want that. These people, all things being equal, are going to turn out in a general election for candidates who ascribe to their philosophy. That's going to be the Republicans and the conservatives. On the other hand, if they're disillusioned by whoever the nominee turns out to be, that'll have a dampening effect. And then the real problem for the Republicans is they continue to be dragged toward the right, maybe the far right, in cycle after cycle. And we're getting to the point where, Mitt Romney is viewed as the moderate in this race, but if you look at everything he's said and done in at least the last 3 or 4 years, there's not a dime's worth of difference in his positions really on most major issues, from the Santorums and the Sarah Palins and the Michelle Bachmans and the Rick Perrys. There really isn't. So he has had to go so far to his right to try to win this nomination. It's going to be very tough for him to get back to the center where he needs to be to win the election in November.
Yeah. Excellent insight, as always, Bill. We appreciate it very much. Bill Ballinger, Inside Michigan Politics, a longtime observer of the political scene, joining us on our continuing coverage here on WXYZ.com of this Michigan presidential primary night. A night like...
We'll remember this one.
Yeah, that's right, that we haven't seen. Tim Kiska rejoining us now, our Channel 7 pollster.
Good to be here.
Yeah, you surviving the night here?
We'll see how it looks in the morning.
Where are we right
Tim's
now?
always hedging his bet.
Well, I'm not hedging any bet, but right now, what our 60 precincts say, which are within a couple points, is that Rick Santorum has won this thing by a 2-point margin. It's right on the bubble. And what's not factored into that is some of the absentee, which I suspect is going to tighten this up somewhat between Romney and Santorum. So whoever wins, it isn't going to be by much. Right. And if somebody held a gun to my head, I'd say Santorum's probably squeaked out on this thing. But nobody's holding a gun to my head, so I'm not going to say that.
Right. The 60 precincts cover the state of Michigan. Correct. From here in southeast Michigan all the way up to Iron Mountain, as we've said during the course of the day. Santorum appeared to be especially strong on the west side of the state, evangelical Christian, so on and so forth.
Right.
Is that reflected in your precincts?
Yes, it's not only among evangelical Christians, but he's also picking up. Santorum also picked up some steam here in southeastern Michigan. He didn't win a lot of precincts, but places, we have one in Allen Park, for instance, that he did fine. I mean, he didn't win, but he got his pound of flesh in southeastern Michigan. Let's put it that way.
And Ron Paul comes away with this about 10.7% if your numbers hold up.
Yep.
Who do you think he takes the most out
of? That's a good. I could say something untoward, but I won't.
Yeah, remember we have FCC,
Yeah, right.
remember we have FCC standards.
Right, even on the internet.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
We're going to play it safe, right?
Right,
We want to keep our jobs.
Tim wants to test the Constitution tonight.
No, Ron Paul would be for that. As a matter of fact, the Constitution. No, I. You know what? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that because I think the Paul supporters are actually so sick of everybody that I think they'd say Romney, Santorum. Probably a lot of those folks would say, "What's the difference?" Yeah. That's what I think they would say. Yeah.
Now, if you're the Democrats, you're sitting back right now. What are you making of this?
Oh, you're having a great old time. You're watching these folks tear each other apart. You're watching a tight race. It means, by the way, that Mitt Romney is going to have to spend even more money on Super Tuesday and throughout the primary season to stay afloat, to win this thing, which means the more money he spends in the primary, the less he's going to have to spend or going to be able to spend in the general election. I think that they're hoping this thing just drags on and on.
Do you think there's a good chance that we're going to see this same type of tightness as we go into the general?
That's a great question. I don't know. Here's what I'm looking at. Ohio on Super Tuesday in a week. What happens there? Where, by the way...
Where DeWine switched his support from Romney to Santorum.
Right, and I think Newt Gingrich, I'm told, is a bigger factor in Ohio. He really wasn't much of a factor here in Michigan, but I think he's a bigger factor in Ohio. And I think that, let's face it, Romney did not come away with a clear, convincing win in his own home state. And so even if he does win this thing, it's not going to be by a huge margin, and I think that's going to be tough.
Well, and again, as we talked about, I mean, even if he doesn't win the popular vote, he's going to get some delegates out of this, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
And the spin will begin, and he'll still be able to declare that he's won, or he's won something.
Right, and everybody's going to have a spin on this thing, and which is fine. That's what this is all about, to some degree. Yeah. So we'll see.
Well, we haven't seen a race like this in a long time. Bill Ballinger went back in his history book and to the Jerry Ford days and versus Ronald Reagan, and that's what it reminded him of.
Very much so. Yeah. Except it was interesting. Ford had a much bigger margin over Ronald Reagan.
In the end,
the end.
But there was concern, I guess.
Oh, very much so. I mean, everybody went in, by the way, thinking that Reagan might hand it to Ford in Ford's old home state. It didn't happen that way. But that was it. I mean, it was a huge drama at that time.
And the closeness of the vote tonight, I mean, it's interesting. We've got Cheryl Choden is with the Santorum campaign. Tom Waite is in Novi with the Romney campaign. Neither candidate has spoken yet to their supporters at their hoped-for victory parties tonight. They're watching what's happening very, very closely,
and I think,
as well.
They've got numbers folks over there, too, and I'm sure they're looking at the same things we're looking at, that, oh, boy, this is tight. I think that, if they're seeing something different, I haven't heard it.
Yeah. John Truscott, when we had him on earlier, said something that there might be some real validity in. He said sometimes fights like this are good for the party. It energizes people. It sort of tests the core values of the party. And people don't take everything for granted, and they aren't sleeping, and it's a good slug fest. And when you come out of this, sometimes...
It depends on how far it goes. Yeah. By the way, I'm old enough to remember the 1972 slugfest among the Democrats, and they came out very weak. By the way, 68 was even worse.
That's true.
And by the time it came to the election against Nixon, Hubert Humphrey lost because I think these guys they'd blown a lot of their energy in the primary season. And there is some validity to what John Truscott has to say, but still, there's a downside to this that.
And a lot of it will probably depend on how they make up. Whoever ends up being the nominee, and does it seem like a sincere type of makeup, or if it's just window dressing? But certainly, Hillary Clinton, and who's now Secretary of State, and Barack Obama, that got a little tough there for a while.
Well, except
and particularly among their supporters.
Not like this, where you've got. Rick Santorum running around saying that Mitt Romney is actually kind of in sympathy with the Occupy Wall Street folks. Mm-hmm. That's awfully extreme. How in the world do you have those two sides make up after that?
It's politics.
Politics makes strange bedfellows, remember?
So I could see a scenario quite plausible that the conservatives just sit this one out.
That's possible.
I mean, that's
Very
possible. And
that could do a lot of damage.
Or they could sit down and say, which some of the conservatives in this state are doing, which is saying, okay, presidential race is what it is, but let's put our energy into the U.S. Senate race, which is what some of the Tea Party, from the large number of Tea Party folks are doing, particularly in the last week. And you may see that where people just say, well, enough of that. Let's put our money into something that maybe we can win.
And the real difficulty may come with who gets picked as the VP, because
that's a possibility.
You're at some point you've got to play for that center of the country,
right?
And depending on who the nominee is, does that person mesh with someone who's more moderate and in the middle?
Maybe it's just me. No, maybe it's just me. But once again, some of the hard right, their positions are so inflexible that I can't imagine. I think it's not politics as usual. You mentioned, it's politics. Well, yeah, it is, but
All right, so this is not a general election, so the total number of votes, I mean, how long is it going to take us to get a 100% number here and ultimately know from a hard number standpoint
who gets what delegates?
Who gets what delegates and who?
I think sometime tomorrow. I don't know how long it's going to take to apportion these because it's all cut up in these 14 congressional districts and multiplied by pi and divided by the phases of the moon.
Excellent. And I'm not very good at math, so I won't even start.
Right.
So we're a big over there.
That's the hard part. Yeah, I got to look up what pi is, as a matter of fact. But, so I think that it's sometime tomorrow, as I understand it.
Yeah. Now, if you're the two-party chairs, what are you really watching beyond the top of the ticket in the presidential race? Because every congressional seat is up in this state.
Right.
Every state representative, or most of the state representatives, are up as well. So there's a fight for control of the House, control of the Senate. What are you really watching?
I mean, in congressional races, the way the new districts are drawn, there really aren't that many competitive districts. I don't know of any. I may be wrong about that. But the way this is drawn, I mean, they're, Fred Upton over in the central part of the state.
Your bigger fights are coming in the primary among Democrats.
Right, exactly. We've got 2 congressional districts here where incumbents are up for re-election, and so I think that's the bigger fight for the Democrats. I don't see the Republicans having any problems whatsoever in their congressional seats. I think that there's some talk that Debbie Stabenow is vulnerable, but even that's going to be a tough race. I mean, she's raised a lot of money, and I think Pete Hoekstra, a lot of people seem to think, has damaged himself with the Super Bowl ad.
Well, debatable, because in the last poll that we did, he actually went up by 8 points.
Oh, he did. Okay, but he's still a
So
little bit, he's still behind, and so I don't know, and then the state house.
I mean, you're right. He was criticized
by
a lot of different sectors for that ad, but a lot of people said that the ad served its purpose because those who he wanted to get to and wake up and come out and support him, they like the message.
Right, exactly.
Just a couple of minutes left here. Let's kind of wrap things up where we are as we approach the 10 o'clock hour tonight. Santorum in the lead.
By a couple points.
By a couple of points, but not ready to project a winner here.
It's within the margin of error. Not interested in playing cowboy on this thing. I mean, I think it's going to be, whoever wins, it's going to be close.
Very interesting. Very interesting night.
Thank you.
Tim Kiska, our Channel 7 pollster, doing the work. Again, the 60 precincts, getting the hard numbers after the polls closed. Just a fascinating night, and an indication maybe of what's to come in the weeks ahead with Super Tuesday.
It could be. I mean, there's certainly. We in the media, we like these type of tight races because it's exciting, and it makes people watch and it makes people debate. Granted, we like to be able to call it, and we like to be able to call it first, but as Tim said, we don't want to be cowboys here. There's no victory in getting it wrong.
And from the Santorum standpoint, even if he winds up a close second here, I mean, he can certainly. He's going to generate momentum from this,
That's right.
energy,
Oh, yeah.
more visibility even. This is nothing but positive for Rick Santorum.
Oh,
And you know what
absolutely.
I can't help but think about is when the Republicans had the debate here several months ago at Oakland University, and there were, I can't remember the exact number of candidates that were in at that particular time, but there were a bunch of them, at least I think about 8 or 9 or 10 of them. Afterwards, when all of the candidates come down to the spin room and do all the interviews with the media, the last candidate in that room during interviews, long after all the other candidates were gone, was Rick Santorum. And I remember looking up and saying, why is he still here doing these interviews?
He can't win,
and no
right?
one was even talking about Rick Santorum at that point. So it just goes to prove that if you're in politics and you work hard, and if he's been doing that everywhere on the campaign trail, at some point it kicked in and it's starting to pay off for him.
Interesting. So, no projection, too close to call. Santorum with a slight lead over Mitt Romney in the Republican primary in the state of Michigan. Just a fascinating night. Tim Kiska, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chuck Stokes, our editorial
you.
director here at Channel 7 as well. We've got complete coverage coming up on the air on 7 Action News at 11 o'clock tonight. Thank you for looking in tonight during our extended coverage on what has proven to be a fascinating night in politics in the state of Michigan.
travel on. There's one day here and the next day gone. Sometimes you bend, sometimes you stand, sometimes you turn your back to the wind. There's a world outside every darkened door where blues won't haunt you anymore, where the brave are free and lovers soar.
Wow. A month ago, they didn't know who we are, but they do now. What an absolutely great night. I am so thankful to so many people here tonight. First and foremost, I just have to say to the people of Michigan, you know, we came into the backyard of one of my opponents in a race that everyone said, well, just ignore, you have really no chance here. And the people of Michigan looked into the hearts of the candidates, and all I have to say is, I love you back. Thank you. Thank you. As I said, you're getting to know me. Well, thank you. Not necessarily exactly through the mediums that I want you to get to know me, but you know, we have an opportunity tonight to tell you a little bit more about who Rick Santorum is. I want to thank the folks up here on this stage behind me, my wife Karen and my family, who's represented here by Elizabeth and John, and at home, the rest of the family, Daniel and Sarah Maria and Peter and Patrick and our little Bella. I want to thank them for standing behind me, not just figuratively, but literally every day of this campaign. So thank them very, very much. I want to tell you about more specifically about three people. First, someone who's not here that I haven't publicly thanked yet, and I feel like I've been remiss at doing so. And that's someone who I know is watching too. And that's my 93-year-old mom. I'm sure she's feeling very proud. One of her first jobs was in Saginaw, Michigan. And she was very, very excited that I was coming back here to Michigan. But my mom's a very, well, unusual person for her time. She's someone who did get a college education in the 1930s and was a nurse. And got a graduate degree even as a nurse and worked full-time. And when she married my dad, they worked together at the Veterans Administration. That's where they met, right after the war. And later on, they had me and the rest of the family, my brother and sister, and my mom continued to work. She worked all of my childhood years. She balanced time, as my dad did, working different schedules. And she was a very unusual person that time. She was a professional who actually made more money than her husband. I grew up with a very strong mom, someone who was a professional person who taught me a lot of things about how to balancing work and family and doing it well and doing it with a big heart and commitment. You know, that's probably one of the reasons that I ended up marrying the person I married here, Karen. Someone who is as strong as they get. Someone who is, I met when she was just about to start the practice of law, and I was doing the same. I recruited her in more ways than one to my law firm. Karen was a professional, worked for a nurse for 9 years, and then after that, we got married and she walked away. And she decided to stay home and raise her children, but she didn't quit working, obviously. Raising 7 children is a lot of work, but she found time also to be an author of 2 books. Those books really went to the heart of the family and something she knows a lot about. She too has been that rock that has been beside me and has been a great example of how it's important to balance that work and family and do so committed to making sure that you're the best at both that you can be. And now I'm proud that I have a daughter here in Elizabeth who is a great part of our campaign. She goes out on her own and campaigns, and the feedback I get is, you stay home, just send Elizabeth out. You'll do just fine. So I've been very, very blessed with great role models for me as someone who goes out and tries to do the job I'm doing right now, to balance the rigors of running a campaign and trying to maintain a good and strong family. We all have to do that as Americans. We all have that responsibility to make both work and work as well as we can. And it's getting harder out here in America. It's getting harder for people to make ends meet because we have a government that is crushing us every single day with more taxes, more regulations, and the idea that they know better than you how to run your life. That ultimately is about what this race is about. It goes down to the very nature of who we are as Americans. Are we a country that believes in big government? Do we believe in the smart and elite in this country to manage us? Or do you believe in free people and a free economy and building a great America from the bottom up? What do you say? Well, we put together a plan and we announced it here in Michigan, our first 100 days and what we're going to do, our freedom agenda, as to how we're going to get this country turned around. And the first thing we talked about is what's on the minds of a lot of people right now, and that is the rising energy costs in this country. We can put millions of Americans, and that's underscoring millions of Americans, back to work if we would unleash the entrepreneurial spirit of our energy sector of the economy. We can drive down prices, decrease our dependency on foreign oil. We can do it all, but we have a president who says no. We have a president who, when the opportunity to open up federal lands for mining and oil and gas drilling, says no. We have a president we have an opportunity to open up offshore. He says no. Deep water, he says no. Alaska, he says no. Build a pipeline, he says no. We need a president who says yes to the American people and energy production. That's right. It's not just the consumer that's affected by it, but it's many communities across this country, rural communities that have been struggling. You look at where the population loss is in this country. You look at where the unemployment rate is highest. It's in areas where the government is shut down and made it virtually impossible for us to use our natural resources, to be able to get to that oil, to get to that coal, to get to that timber, whatever the case may be. Bureaucrats in Washington don't care about flyover country and those sparsely populated areas that provide us the resources upon which we live. I was in one of those areas just a couple weeks ago, in the Bakken in northwestern North Dakota. And I went to a little town of Tioga, North Dakota. Tell you how small Tioga, North Dakota is. That's about the 5th time I've mentioned the speech, and I've yet to get a shout out for Tioga, North Dakota. It's a small town. It's a small town. And it could be a boom town. But they're nervous because the present EPA is hovering. Yes, they're developing oil on private lands. This oil. Yeah, this is oil. Oil out of rock, shale. It leaches oil. In fact, the highest quality oil in the world, light sweet crude. It can produce thousands and thousands of jobs up in northwest North Dakota. But they have trouble. They have trouble getting investors to come here. Why? Because they believe the government is going to shut them down or potentially pull the plug on them. They have a pipeline that they'd love to be able to build to get that oil to market instead of running truck after truck after truck through the roads of North Dakota and then on the rail. This crude that comes out of this rock is a premium product, but not in North Dakota. They get a $32 discount when they sell their oil. Why? Because we have a president who won't let them get their oil to market. Folks, we need a president who's on the side of rural America, who's on the side of small town America, and opens up those energy resources for America. And it's not just the energy industry that small town and rural America thrive on. Of course, as you know, here in Michigan, it's manufacturing. One of the things I think that I felt very good about in the way, as well as we did here tonight, is the message of creating jobs, manufacturing jobs for small town America, resonated here with the people of Michigan. They saw a vision for how their lives could be better. They saw a vision how their ladder to success now could be built down to people with limited skills, but the desire to work hard and be able to upgrade their skills as they work in a manufacturing facility. We've lost from 21% of the economy to 9% of, not of the economy, but of workers in manufacturers down to 9%. That's just unexcusable. All of it because government regulation and government taxation. We've put forward a plan the Wall Street Journal calls supply-side economics for the working man. The working men and women of this country to be able to get those jobs in manufacturing, to be able to get those skills, provide for their family. The average manufacturing job in America pays $20,000 more a year than the average job in America. We can get those jobs back. We need to slash the corporate rate for taxes to zero. We need to let the regulatory environment, which Barack Obama is destroying and crushing manufacturing. We will repeal every single one of Barack Obama's big government regulations on day one. And of course, part of those regulations, one of the things we're going to repeal right out, is Obamacare. That is the biggest issue in this race. It's an issue about fundamental freedom. It's an issue about whether you want the government to take your money and in exchange give you a right. Give you a right. They're going to give you the right to health care. That's what President Obama promised. But of course, when the government gives you a right, they can take that right away. And when the government gives you that right, they can tell you how to exercise that right. And they do. Not just what doctors you can see and what insurance policies or how much you're going to get fined if you don't do what the government tells you to do. But even go so far as to tell you how to exercise your faith as part of your health care bill. If the government can go that far with Obamacare, just think what's next. Ladies and gentlemen, we need a candidate who can go out and take on Barack Obama, who was an author from 20 years ago, the author of Free Market Healthcare Economics, Health Savings Accounts, has been a fighter for replacing all of these programs across this country in the federal level with our government-run healthcare, with not Romney Care or Obamacare, but a program that's based upon you, called You Care, because that's what we believe in America. We've got a great conservative track record on not just health care, but on taking on the big problems that confront this country. The deficit, huge, expanding, exploding debt in this country. Someone has been an advocate ever since I was in politics for a balanced budget amendment, fought tooth and nail to get it passed, came within one vote, but have never given up trying to fight. We will work to pass a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, but in the meantime, we will do something that no one else has ever successfully done, but I did. And that is we will go out and we will end entitlement programs on the federal level, give them back to the states, and cut them dramatically to save money. People said we couldn't do it. We did it. I was the author of welfare reform. Welfare reform, which ended a federal entitlement, cut the program, capped it, gave it back to the states, like we need to do with Medicaid and food stamps and a whole host of other programs that are already run by the state and have no business, according to, remember that document, what's it called? Oh, yeah, it's the U.S. Constitution, that thing, right? We need to get those programs back to the states. We need to save the federal government money, and more importantly, welfare didn't just save money, didn't just cut the rolls, but it saved lives. It put people back to work. It drove people out of poverty. It gave them something that dependency doesn't give, hope. And that's what America is all about, giving opportunity and hope. All of our economic plan is based on a very simple concept, based on what's worked for America from its very founding. I wave this Constitution at every speech, and I talk about it being the operator's manual of America. It's how America works. It's the how of America. But there's another document equally important, which is the why of America. And that's the Declaration of Independence. And in that declaration is these words: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That phrase was the most transformational phrase ever written in a government document. That phrase said that we are going to be a country with limited government and believing in free people to be able to form families and communities and churches and educational institutions and hospitals and be able to build a great and just society, a free society from the bottom up. That's how America works best, from the bottom up. And that's the solutions that we're going to propose for America, the bottom up. The men and women who signed that Declaration of Independence wrote this final phrase: we pledge to each other our lives, our fortune, and our sacred honor. When they signed that document, they had very little hope, real hope, of actually succeeding in a revolution against the British. The British were the most powerful army in the world, and navy in the world. They were ruled by highly educated, noble people. Their uniforms were crisp and stiff. They looked good. But their rulers ruled them from on high, didn't listen to them as they fought the Revolutionary War. Our leaders were different. George Washington, the signature leader of America, was different. He understood that the greatness of this new country was to have leaders who understood that in spite of their breeding and education, they didn't have all the answers. That they could trust the people, that ragtag group of people who stepped forward to volunteer to create freedom in this land. And they believed, General Washington believed in that. In fact, some of his boldest moves came not from him or his generals, but from the ranks. That's how America's freedom was won. Leaders believing in the people that they led, against those who just thought all the answers resided in those in charge. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what made America free, and that is what will make America free in the future. Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, your governor from the great state of Michigan, Rick Snyder.
She's giving me excitations. I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me excitations. Good vibrations. She's giving me excitations. Good vibrations.
To have the primary in Michigan tonight and to show the rest of the country we've been down for a decade, but we're back. We're coming back strong because we're going to have the leadership we need in Washington. I just got back from there and it's a mess. We're showing them how to do it here in Michigan. How to balance a budget, pay down deficits, and to create jobs. What the other good part is the only thing holding us back is really Washington. But we're on a path to get the leadership we need there to make us even go faster here in Michigan. So I'm proud to be here with Sue and Kelsey tonight, and it's my honor and privilege to introduce Ann Romney and the next President of the United States, Mitt Romney.
As usual, I have a long list of thank yous, and I'm going to see if you're all going to behave and listen to this list without cheering in between. We'll see if you can get this right. Thank you to our honorary Michigan chairman, Governor Rick Snyder, who you just saw, Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley, and to our campaign co-chairs, Attorney General Bill Schuette, Senate Majority Leader Randy Richardville, Speaker Jays Bolger. I also want to thank our finance chairs. By the way, this really is helpful. The finance chairs, David Fisher and John Ricolta. And we have a big family here in Michigan, and we'd like to thank them. Scott Romney, Lynn Keenan, Ronna Romney McDaniel, and other members of the Romney and Davies family, by the way, my family, across the state. I also must recognize our national committee members, Saul Anuzis and Holly Hughes.
Yeah, great job.
And our congressmen. This is a list. Let me see if I can get through this. Dave Camp, Fred Upton, Mike Rogers, Thad McCotter, Bill Huizenga, Dan Benishek, Tim Walberg, and thank you to our wonderful surrogates, Donald Trump, Governor Tim Pawlenty, Governor Bob McDonnell, Governor Chris Christie, and your famous Oakland County Chair that you love, let's see, Brooks Patterson. How can I forget Brooks? Representative Eric Nesbitt, former state rep Rocky Ruskowski, Professor Gary Wolfram, and Attorney General Mike Cox. Listen, this list has been so helpful. I'm sorry to keep going. To our state team, Lori Wartz and Bob McCumber. And finally, thank you, Kid Rock. The last week, I have been going, along with Mitt, my son Tag too, we've been going up and down this state, all over, from the tip of the mitt.
Careful.
I know, I better be careful. But what we have seen out there has broken my heart. I love Michigan. I love Michigan.
We love you.
I grew up drinking Vernors and listening to Tiger baseball. And what we saw when we went across Michigan were families that were hurting, people that were out of jobs, and then there's something else. And they're so concerned about their children. And why it is because of the debt that we're going to give to our children. And we have had it. Washington, here we come. We are going to take back America, and we're going to let this guy do it.
Wow, what a night. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now first to call it. Okay, first thank you was the first state to call it. Thank you, Arizona. Great victory in Arizona tonight. And thank you, Michigan. What a win. This is a big night. Thanks, you guys. You know, a week ago, it was just a week ago, the pundits and the pollsters, they were ready to count us out. But across Michigan and Arizona, I kept on meeting moms and dads and students and grandparents, and they were concerned about what's happening to this great country of ours. And I was confident that we could come together today and take a giant step toward a brighter future. So tonight, their efforts have brought our cause a great victory, and we celebrate people across these states. Thank you. Now, tonight is also particularly special for me because this is the place where I was. And I know that the Michiganders in this room, we consider you all family. Thank you so much for your help. And in this room are the people who knocked on the doors and made the calls and went to the polls, and it made an enormous difference. We didn't win by a lot, but we won by enough, and that's all that counts. And by the way, in Arizona, special thank you to Governor Jan Brewer there and Senator John McCain. They were tireless, particularly John McCain. He's been all over the country helping. What a hero. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Governor. They're out there. We've got 2 sons out there that are celebrating with them. Great thing about having so many in our family. We can cover almost every race. So Super Tuesday will be stretched, but we're going to find a way. Our campaign, as you know, is about restoring the promise of America. Last week, I unveiled a very bold economic plan that's going to jumpstart the economy, and it's going to get Michiganders back to work. It's going to get Americans more jobs they're crying out for, and we're going to have less debt and smaller government, and I'm going to deliver on more jobs, less debt, and smaller government. We've got to hear that day in and day out. More jobs, less debt, smaller government. You know, there are a lot of people who are saying that if you're running for office, you really can't speak honestly to the American people. Well, we did, and I will. And because this is a decisive moment, I believe this is a time that requires real leadership in our country. Times are tough. We need leaders who will live with integrity, who have the courage to tell the truth, and have the experience to get our economy back on track. That's the kind of leader I aspire to be. That's the kind of leader I will be if I'm President of the United States. Our campaign is about more than just replacing a president. It's about restoring America's promise. From generation to generation, Americans have always known that the future would be brighter and better. Americans have always believed in a tomorrow full of possibility and prosperity. That's what it means to be the land of opportunity. In America, you know that if you work hard, you can build a better life. If you teach your kids the right kind of values and help them make the right choices in life, you know their future will be prosperous and secure. And that deep confidence of a better tomorrow is the basic promise of America. Today, that promise is being threatened by a faltering economy and a failed presidency. 4 years ago, we warned that the presidency was no place for on-the-job training. Well, today we have the economy to prove it, all right? This president, by the way, he likes to remind us that he inherited an economy that was in crisis. But he doesn't like to remind us that he also inherited a Democrat Congress. He had majorities in both the House and the Senate. He was free to pursue any policy he pleased. Did he fix the economy? No. You know, did he tackle the housing crisis? No. Did he get America back to work? No, instead he put us on a path toward debt and deficits and decline. It's time to get off that path and get back on the path of American prosperity. Now these days when he's not spending our money or infringing on our rights, he's busy running for re-election. He believes that, did you hear this? He believes that he ranks among the top 4 presidents in American history. Can you believe that? I'd find a different spot for him. He thinks he deserves a second term. He says, we can't wait, to which I say, oh, yes, we can. All right? Today, we're $15 trillion in debt, and real unemployment stands at 15%. You've heard that old saying about, I need a vacation from my vacation? Well, we need to have a recovery from this so-called recovery. You know, as a nation, we've survived a Great Depression. We've weathered 2 world wars. We've made it through tough times. And we've not come all this way to give up now. We still believe in the hope, in the dream, and the promise of America. We know our future is better and brighter than these troubled times. That unwavering conviction guides our campaign and this effort. It's rallied millions of people to our cause. And it's the message we're going to take to every corner of the country, from Ohio and Idaho to Georgia and Tennessee. We've seen enough of this president over the last 3 years to know that we don't need another 5 years of President Obama, because you know, he thinks he's unchecked by the Constitution. He's unresponsive to the will of our people, and in a second term, he would be unrestrained by the demands of re-election. If there's one thing we can't afford, it's 4 years of Barack Obama with nothing to answer to. So we're going to get him out of that office and get him back home where he belongs. Now, you saw his budget. You saw the budget. He put it out. It foreshadows exactly what we're going to see ahead if he's the president. Runaway spending, record debt, they were just the warm-up act. You know, for an encore, he wants to raise taxes on job creators and small businesses and families. And we are not going to let him do it. In this campaign, I'm offering a real choice and a very different direction. I have a plan that will restore America's promise through more jobs and less debt and smaller government. President Obama is making the federal government bigger, more burdensome, and bloated. I'll make it simpler, smaller, and smarter, and it's about time for that to happen. He raised the national debt. I will cut, cap, and balance the budget. He passed Obamacare. I will repeal Obamacare. He lost our AAA credit rating. I'll restore our AAA credit rating. He rejected the Keystone Pipeline. I'll get us that oil from Canada that we deserve. And by the way, I'm going to open up our lands for development so we can finally get the energy in this country that we need at a price we can afford. Look, when it comes to the economy, my highest priority will be worrying about your job, not worrying about how to save my own. This president, you've heard, this president wants to raise your taxes. I'm going to cut them. That's going to start with an across-the-board 20% rate cut for every American. I'll also repeal the alternative minimum tax, and we will abolish, finally, the death tax. And you know, he has now proposed raising taxes on small businesses and job creators. I'm going to lower those taxes. I'll also lower the corporate rate to larger businesses to 25%. I'll make the R&D tax credit permanent to foster innovation. And I'm going to end the repatriation tax to return investment back to our shores. There's a lot of money offshore that ought to come back to America. Let's finally have a tax plan that puts Americans back to work. And I have it, and we'll get it in place. Now, you know, he also proposes to raise taxes on savings and investment. And if I'm the president, I'm going to help middle-class families save and invest tax-free. Yeah, good. I agree. You agree. It's about time. And he also has an extraordinary gap in his policy proposals. Do you realize after saying that Medicare and Social Security were in trouble, he has yet to offer a single serious proposal for saving Medicare and Social Security? I have a plan to save them both. And unlike him, I have the courage to put my plan on the table for people to see. Look, what this campaign is about, what my plans are about, are creating jobs and raising wages for the American people. They're going to strengthen our entitlement programs for the next generation. And they will not add to our deficit. We will finally balance America's budget. Now, beyond having a plan to get our citizens back to work, I have the experience to get our economy back on track. I spent 25 years in business. I was also the steward of the Olympics and the leader of a state. I cut taxes 19 times. I've turned a budget shortfall into a surplus. I know how government can kill jobs, and yes, I know how it can help create jobs. And I stand ready to lead our party to victory and our nation back to prosperity. We'll get the job done. It's a critical time in America. It's our time for choosing. And this time, we got to get the choice right. I've said it before, and I firmly believe it, that this campaign is about saving the soul of America. This election comes down to two very different visions of America. It's a choice between becoming a nation of and by Washington or remaining a nation of and by a free people. A choice between an entitlement society and a land of opportunity. A choice between squandering America's promise and restoring that promise for future generations. If you want to make this election about restoring American greatness, then I hope you'll join us. If you believe the disappointments of the last few years are a detour and not the destiny for America, then I need your support. I'm asking for you to get out and vote. And I'm asking for you, by the way, to go on mittromney.com and pledge your support in every way possible. I'm asking you to join the fight for our freedom, to ensure that tomorrow will be better than today. This election, let's restore America's promise. Let's fight for this country we love. We've got work ahead. We're going to do that work. We're going to take back America. America's the greatest nation in the history of the earth. We're going to keep it that way. Thanks, you guys. You're the best. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.